Welcome back to Leave the Week Behind, my 2025 Stitch Along. This video is all about July's leaves that I stitched, and that is for week 27, 28, 29, and 30. Let's have a look at week 27. We are going to be stitching an open buttonhole filler stitch. This leaf was stitched with a size 8 pearl cotton, and I stitched over the entire leaf. I've got my linen piece here that I'm working on. I'm going to stitch on this leaf. I'm going to be using a eleganza pearl cotton. This is actually a size number 5. I just chose a number 5 this time. And it's EZM 90. It's pumpkin rinds. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorites. As you can tell, the spool is getting pretty small. I'm using a tapestry 20 needle. Now the first thing I did was I did my foundation of back stitches. So I back stitched around the edge of the leaf, and then I changed to a tapestry needle. So I used a chenille and then changed. One thing I did want to mention, somebody gave me a piece of ultra suede, a little scrap of it to stitch with, and I thought it would be fun to make a leaf. So I cut a leaf out of this ultra suede, and it's really cool stuff. I used just regular sewing thread to whip stitch the leaf in place because I wasn't really sure what to use. So it was kind of an experiment, but I think it turned out really nice. I don't know if I would buy a lot of this because it's very expensive, but I thought it was really, really pretty and it's fun to try. To start this stitch, I'm going to start on the left and I'm going to work back and forth. It doesn't matter if you start on the left or the right. I'm just left-handed. I'm going to start on the left. If you're right-handed, you may want to start on the right. But we're going to go back and forth. And to start, I've come up in between 2 of the back stitches here. And to start the stitch, we are going to go from the outside in through this back stitch. And I want my working thread to be behind my needle. And it makes a little loop. And I'm going to go on the other side here to get it started and do the same thing. Now, when you've come at the end of each side, you want to go out of the side through one of the back stitches, and then you want to go back in again on the other side, just like that. Okay. And then, so we've got 2 little loops here. I'm going to go through this loop in between, like that. And then I'm going to go out this side and come back in. Okay. And it'll start to open up. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go through that loop. We're going to go through this loop, and then we're going to go out the other side, and then we're going to come back in. Okay. And now it's started to get a little wider, so I'm going to go ahead and go on this side here and go through this loop. I'm going to go through this one. I'm going to go through this one. And you see how it's starting to open up. And then I'm going to go out the side. Come back in. I'm going to go through this one. One, this one, and through this one. So you can see how it's opening up here. And what I'll do is I'll continue going back and forth until I've filled it in. So this is one of those stitches that you kind of have to make judgment calls on if you're decreasing or increasing, if you need to go in this corner bit or not, if you needed to skip one. I kind of like to just see how it looks. If it looks good, I'm going to keep going. If I need to change things, I can also, skip on one side. Just depends on, how it's stitching up for you. But there's no like real concrete number of stitches that you need to be going through. So you just kind of have to sort of wing it. But you can see how it's all starting to fill itself in, just like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue stitching this till I'm almost all the way to the end, and then I'll show you the next steps for finishing. I've just about finished this leaf. It's pretty open. I like the way it looks. It's turning out really good. So I've come down here to the bottom and I've got this little gap, but once you start pulling these down, it's going to fill itself in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to do this last loop, and then I'm going to take my needle just to the back of one of these loops here to just draw it down. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And then I'm just going to take, and it looks like I'm able to skip one of these loops just like that. And then when you're done, you can take your needle to the back of your work. That turned out pretty good. So let's move on to the next leaf. Let's take a look at week number 28. This is the leaf that I stitched for week 28 and kept it pretty simple. We're going to be using an Eleganza Pearl Cotton number 8. We did bullion knots around the edge, and I did a fly stitch, I believe, down the center, fly stitch, and then I did these little double cast on bullions, and there's only like maybe 6 cast-ons total, 3 on each side, so they're pretty small. So let's get my linen piece out and we'll work on that. Here is my linen piece. This is the leaf we're going to stitch with today, and I'm using an Eleganza Pearl Cotton EZM 72. I can't remember the name. I think it's like under a tree, over a tree, something a tree. I don't know, but it's one of my favorites and I love it. And we're going to be using a chenille 24 needle, and we're going to start by doing the fly stitches, and we're going to make them a little bit smaller than the wool sample because I want to be able to do those double cast-ons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work this fly stitch down the center, and then we'll switch our needles. And I think it was just a regular fly stitch. Oh, no, it was a closed fly stitch. So we're going to come up to the top like this. Okay, so we've come up to the top of our work, and we're going to go down and come out the top on this side. I want it to be kind of enough room to stitch that double cast on. We're going to go like that, and then we're going to come over to this side. Just like that. This is such a pretty thread to work with. I'm going to come down and come on this side again. I think I've made enough space here to do those double cast-ons. I hope so. And come on this side. And then just keep going here until I've created this little fly stitch section of the leaf. Fly stitch, I used to be afraid of doing the fly stitch. I never could really quite get it. I think it was because I was left-handed, and I don't know, finally I just sat down one day and said, oh my gosh, I need to like really get this stitch. And I just have my own way of doing it. So, and look at the color variation. Wow, that's really pretty. That's turning out really nice. Make one more here, and then we'll be ready to do the cast on bullions. And then I'm going to just take my needle, and I'm kind of doing it to the side. Maybe what I'll do is like have it curve a little bit. I think I'm going to have it curve a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just couch it down in place and see if I like that. Yeah, I think I like that. Okay, so let me thread a needle. I'm going to be using a milliner's 3, and I'll come right back. I've thread my milliner's needle here, and when you're doing the cast on bullion knot, you need to double your thread. So I've doubled the thread, and I've tied a knot at the bottom. So to get started, I'm not going to do this whole thing on camera because you can see an entire tutorial for this stitch, but I'm just going to show you how I do it. And I'm going to start up here, and I'm making a pretty small one. So you always start away from where your stitch is going to land. So I've come up to the top of my work, and I want it to rest right at the edge of this fly stitch. So I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to go down to the back of my work and come out right underneath the emerging thread, which now there's 2. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to split these threads apart, and I'm going to have one on each side of the needle like this. And if it gets twisted, don't worry about it. All you have to do is just unwind it until it goes straight. So now you've got 2 sides here to work with. So you're going to cast on, sort of like doing a drizzle, but you're going to do one on each side. So when you have instructions that tell you do an 8 cast on bullion knot, what they're saying is to do 4 on one side and 4 on the other. So I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to wrap my thread around, and I'm going to take my needle, and I kind of help the needle or the thread onto the needle. I've got 1 stitch here. I'm going to put on the second one. Do it again. That's 3, 4, 5, 6. So the trick is to make sure that the number of stitches that you have on this needle will cover the bite that you're going to make. So it's really important. So if you feel like you're not sure if it's not going to be enough, go ahead and cast on more. I'm going to do, just for good measure, 2 more. Just like that. And then I'm going to use my thumb and hold the stitches down in place. I'm going to pull my needle through slowly and make sure that I've pulled all the threads through. And it starts to look like that until you fold it over on itself, just like that. Now you're not finished until you anchor the stitch, so you need to go and take your needle to the back of your work. And that makes the cast on bullion. So I'm going to do this off camera. I'll finish this stitch. I'm going to do one for each little leg here. And then what I'll do is I'm going to do bullion knots around the edge. Now, I think I'm just going to go ahead and move on to the next leaf because you've seen me do bullion knots in the other videos. Let's take a look at leaf 29. It's this leaf right here. And I stitched a coral stitch on the outside, and I used a pearl cotton number 5. And then I also came in and did a row of back stitches to make a stem. And then I did some little detached chain stitches, and I changed the size and the thread as I went along. Now I had this this packet of House of Embroidery. It was called Sunlit Greens, and it came in 3 little little spool or little hanks of their same colorway but different threads. So what I have here is I have an 8 pearl cotton, and I use that at the top here. I use the 5 pearl cotton around the edge and right here. And then I use the silk ribbon to finish the little detached chain stitches at the end. So that's what I did for the wool tree. Let's take a look at my linen piece. I seem to be really tongue-tied tonight. I don't know what my problem is. So I've got my needle threaded. I think I'm going to use just the size 8 pearl cotton. I've got my linen piece here. I've picked my leaf. I'm going to do the coral stitch, and I'm going to do it on the edge here, and I'm going to stick, on my other one I did it in a 5, but I'm going to do it in an 8. And I like to do my coral stitch in the background completely instead of taking a little bite into the wool. It's just how I like to do it, but you can do it either way. You can either take your bite like this. You can either take your bite into a piece of the wool, or you can do it really close to the edge. It's up to you. So to do the coral stitch, I've come up to the top of my work. I've taken a little bite. I'm going to wrap my working thread front to back or clockwise. So if you're looking at your needle straight up, it's going clockwise. And I'm going to pull my needle through, and it's going to make a little knot, just like that. And I'm going to go and do it right next to the last one. You can do it as close or as far away as you want. You get to decide. And that's how you make a coral stitch. So you're just going to keep doing that until you go all the way around and connect on the other side. And when I do it, I like to pull my thread just straight up when I'm making the little knot. So what I'll do is I will continue on. I'll go all the way around. I'll come back, and then we'll talk about the next part. I finished the coral stitch, and I went ahead and did a back stitch through the center here, and I kind of curved the bottom just a little bit for some interest. And so the next step we're going to do is put in all of the detached chain stitches to make this little leaf stand out. So I'm still going to be using my 8 pearl cotton, but I'm going to do a detached chain stitch on top. Just take a little bite like this, put my working thread behind my needle, and then take my thread to the back of my work. And you can do as many or as little as you like. So if you look at what I did on this one, you can kind of see I just did however many rows, and then I switched to the bigger size. So I'm going to do a few, and then I'll switch over and do the larger sizes. So I think I'm going to do one. I'll do one right here. I'm about to run out of thread. Take my needle to the back of my work, just like that. Okay, and so what I'll do is I'll work on these, and then I'll come back and I'll do the ribbon part. Okay, so I have been working on this leaf, and I actually decided to make it a little bit bigger for the space than I did for this one. So this one I did it really narrow. This one I'm going to do a little bit bigger, and then I'm ready to do a little bit of the ribbon embroidery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do maybe, I don't know if I can fit 2 more stitches, but we're going to see how that works. I'm about to run out too. So I'm going to come up to the front of my work with my ribbon, and I'm going to take a stitch, put my working thread behind the needle, and I want it to look like that. So I'm going to go over like that. Okay, and then take my needle to the back of my work. Yeah, that's really pretty. I think I'm just going to use the back of my needle just to kind of figure out how I want that to look. So all I'm doing is these detached chain stitches. You can make them as big or as small as you like. And then I'm going to finish this, and then we're going to move on to the last leaf in this video. So I'm trying to keep it kind of short, but I think we've got just one more to do, and then we'll be ready for August. There you go. Let's take a look at week number 30. For this leaf, I stitched a cotton overlay in the center. I did some bullion loops on the outside, and I did some bullion knots around the cotton. And then I just did a few little stitches here with some French knots just to add some interest. It's a little flower. I don't know if you can see that. So let's get the linen piece out, and I'll show you what I'm going to stitch with. I have my linen piece. This is the leaf that I'm going to stitch with. I've stitched a little cotton applique on top. And this piece of wool is some scrap from somewhere. I don't even know where it came from. So I'm going to use that. So on the outside, we're going to do bullion loops. And we're going to use this EZM, I think it is 94, lamb's ear, I think it's called. It's such a beautiful color. Sort of a blue, teal, and I'm also going to pair it with this EZM 22 Serene Green. So I'm going to use these two on this leaf. Now I've done these bullion loops in other videos, so I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I am going to just demo it for anybody that is new here. So to do a bullion loop, the idea is you're going to do a bullion knot, but you're going to take maybe a little bit smaller bite and maybe just a few more stitches. I'll probably cast on quite a few, or I'll wrap quite a few. So I'm going to come up here. I've come up to the top, and I'm trying not to catch my knot underneath. And I'm coming up right here, just like that. And I'm going to wrap maybe 15 times. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Let's see, 15 looks pretty good. I've taken a small bite. I've wrapped 15 times. I have to make sure that I push all of those wraps to the bottom at the base of your needle here. And then holding on to it with your thumb, you're going to pull your needle through and then tighten the loop. Looks just like that. Okay, and don't forget, you're not finished until you've anchored your stitch to the back of your work. Now, where do we go next? So you always make these stitches away from you because they fall over on themselves. So I'm going to just go right here for the next one. I'm going to take a little bite. And I'm going to wrap 15 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, just like that. Pull my needle through. And then I'm going to take my needle to the back of my work. Just like that. And so you're going to make a whole bunch of loops here. Just like that. You can use the back of your needle to shape your loops if you need to. We're just going to pull that a little tighter. And then we're ready for the next one. I'm going to do that all the way around, and then I'm going to do bullion knots and probably just leave it as is. But that is week 30 and all of July's leaves.